the Among Lionhearts podcast, where we dare to have moxie for what matters. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Julia, and we are your new loudmouth, change-making, do-gooder best friends, here to embolden you to take more action, risk, and heart towards creating a more just, equitable, and brave world.
In today's episode, we are breaking down story hacking and discovering how valuable storytelling is and why it should be a foundational part of your strategy. If you're looking to persuade more do-gooders to join in your cause, create awareness of your mission that translates to long-term success, and learn to craft messaging that does the heavy lifting for you, then this is the episode for you.
Elsa has been dreaming about becoming a plant biologist ever since her mother taught her how to bend and mold the nearby dry desert earth into conditions that could grow food for her family. The problem is that girls from her village don't go to college, and they certainly don't become scientists. But guess what? Elsa isn't going to let that stand in her way. No. Through hard work and determination, Elsa has earned the Lionheart College Scholarship and is on her way to realizing her dreams right now. You can make a difference in the lives of children like Elsa by donating to the scholarship fund here. So, how did this story make you feel? I want you to really think about it. Did you see yourself with Elsa in the field with her mother? Did you see her dreaming big dreams? You probably did. And that's why storytelling is so powerful. Is it just created an immersive interaction between you and I, and you got to be there and envision yourself there. And it's just incredibly powerful.
I was chatting with a friend a couple of days ago, and we had this discussion about why reading the book is always better than watching the movie. And I immediately I said, oh, because it's a format that has a lot more time to tell the story, and you get more context and more details, and you learn more about the character development. But I know, because in reading a story, you have to activate your imagination and your emotions. And when you read a story, you are in the story, you are part of the story. And the one thing that watching a movie misses is you are seeing the story told from the director's point of view. And my friend actually said this was something that Richard Dreyfuss had pointed out. And it really is so powerful to be able to see a story through your own lens, through your own experience. So bringing that power to nonprofit storytelling and talking about why storytelling is so valuable for your nonprofit. Well, first of all, humans love a good story. Stories share a real experience. They add a human element to your content, and storytelling doesn't sound salesy, which is something that we're often as marketers trying to avoid.
Yeah. So storytelling, as I was telling that story and stuff, remember, it's very emotionally driven. I tried to purposely use very warm feeling words that painted a picture and stuff like that. That's really important because it activates your empathy. It activates when you imagine yourself there. It's a lot easier to empathize with yourself. All right. So if you can paint a picture that you're in there, you're going to feel a little closer to that cause and be able to picture yourself, because we're all humans. There's certain things that no matter where you are in the globe, humans do. Humans have mothers, and we all, a lot of us who are fortunate enough have at least some memories with their mothers. And so, it paints this nostalgia, and it just takes you to a new place. And we actually found a study that 55% of consumers who love Rand stories, they are often more willing to make a purchase based on that, just really connecting with that. And that's the same thing with nonprofits. is that when people are really feeling connected and really immersing themselves in your stories, like they're going to donate. They're going to want to get involved. A little piece of their heart is with you now, and so you're the little like caregiver of that.
Another reason why storytelling can be so valuable for nonprofits is because donors use their emotions when making decisions. We know as nonprofit marketers that there's a lot of competition for donors. A really great way to overcome that challenge is by crafting messages that speak directly to donors' emotions. This is why persuasion is so important in our marketing. People need to be convinced to embrace your mission. They need to be convinced to sign up for your program or to attend your event or to volunteer or donate. And despite how important we as nonprofit marketers know persuasion is, most nonprofits struggle to communicate, let alone inspire. And so the much more powerful way to be able to harness persuasion is engaging people's hearts with a story, creating this emotional process and this journey to lead them through. You're able to weave a lot of information in your storytelling, but you're also able to arouse your listeners' passions and imagination. And that's why we absolutely advocate storytelling for nonprofits.
It's one of the reasons why I love social media so much is it kind of puts the power of storytelling in the regular guy's hands, and that's why we love it so much for nonprofits, because there's this whole platform, multiple platforms where you can get on and like really connect with your supporters in a way that just wasn't there before. So let's talk about what makes for compelling nonprofit storytelling. First of all, you want to really connect the donor directly to the beneficiary. Like, how is it relevant? How is your donors relevant to the people you're serving? And focusing down on that, and use words that really paint them in a hero's light. Using you a lot. Don't refer to your organization as your organization or your cause, because it's the human's cause. This is all humanity's issues. It's humanity's issue to help come together and solve these social issues. So be talking in that tone.
Also, you can tell it like a fireside chat. If you can make your narrative conversational and informal, it's going to connect with people a little bit better. One thing to think about when you're trying to do that is how would I tell this story to a friend? So if you're thinking about, sitting across the table from somebody while you're having a meal and telling them why, what really excites me about that is like, if I think about sitting across the table from Julia and telling her why I'm involved in a nonprofit, like there's going to be all this excitement that kind of comes out of me. And I can get really emotionally engaged when I know that it's somebody who's truly invested listening to me. So try and break it down and make it a lot more conversational. Make sure that you're making it friendly and engaging, and remember to throw in some humor there where it's appropriate,
Absolutely. Like the world is a beautiful, funny place, and it doesn't matter like what your circumstances are. There's so many moments of like joy and silliness that is happening in the direst of circumstances that deserves being highlighted as well and deserves being shared as well. And
Absolutely.
People are going to connect more with your organization when you've got the full human element, and that includes joy and happiness and silliness, as well as needs and challenges. And so absolutely be using that. Don't forget to use your storytelling by really getting that hook sentence in there, like grab their attention right at the beginning. The first like 4 to 5 words, it used to be the advice used to be the first sentence is the one that matters most. And I'm telling you, with the Donna TikTok and all the things, it's the first 4 to 5 words. Like people already have judged your copy based on the first 4 to 5 words. So like really like think about those first 4 to 5 words and the full sentence, and things you're going to want to do to kind of grab them are use words that people don't often hear, is a really great way to kind of grab their attention. Use fun phrases that maybe people have heard lots of times, but just give it a little twist, to like spark their attention. Hey, that's not quite right. And using a question as an opening sentence and stuff like that can be really engaging and really like grab people's attention. And then try using just a lot of personality. When all else fail, just get raw and just get all the emotions out there and make it sound super human, because in a world of tech and corporations and stuff like that, like people are hungry to have human connection, and it's just a little way for you to like implement that.
Absolutely. Also, another way to ensure your storytelling is compelling is make sure that you're ending your story effectively. I feel like this is where your call to actions come in to effect, but also, you need to let your donors know that things are improving for beneficiaries, right? We always want to let them know that we're being impactful. But let them know that their part of the story isn't over yet. The ending is yet to come, and you will need them to make that happen. So remember, we still need your help, and then giving them that suggestion on how to help. That's where your call to action comes in.
And above all, make sure you've really focused your story down, and make sure that you're not drowning out your own main message. And that could look like, you're trying to get the point across. You're trying to paint a picture of what it's like for somebody to live in one of these circumstances, but you put in the detail in there that just overshadows the whole rest of it. And then people don't understand like what you're really trying to get them to think about. So a great way to do that, what I like to do is after I've written copy is I go back through it, I filter it through a few questions, and I really like trim out any unnecessary parts. I ask myself, is this relevant to the story? How does this add to the story? And I also cut out any extra words. I do like to write with a lot of visual descriptive words and stuff like that. And I often am like, wow, that was a lot. We could have said that in a third of that amount and still had the same visual and emotional impact. So
I feel like as we get more and more experienced as professionals, brevity and being concise becomes more and more incorporated in what we do.
Yeah. And also, remember to don't include any storylines that aren't directly relevant, and then keep it short. We recommend with stories, you can make them a little bit longer, but I wouldn't recommend any more than 6 lines, unless there are very few exceptions to that your story is more than 6 lines. If it's more than 6 lines, then maybe it should be a video, and consider putting it into a video. But our recommendation is really kind of the sweet spot, 4 lines of your Facebook. So it shouldn't go down any further than 4 lines. A lot of times after that, you have to click read more, and you really want to get your reader fully immersed in the story.
And don't forget, the algorithm downgrades your stuff the longer your copy is.
That's right. Facebook don't like it. You get docked for really, really long copies too. So
you always got to write it for the Facebook gods,
There's this assumption that if supporters are following you on Facebook and they click like and stuff like that they're going to see your content, and that's not true anymore because of the algorithm. If you don't have really engaging posts and you don't have a lot of likes and shares and stuff like that, chances are your supporters aren't going to see it either. So it's really important to bump up that engagement and find ways to engage your supporters with your posts.
Absolutely. Our last tip on making your storytelling more compelling is use visuals. I do feel like this is a little bit related to the point you made earlier, Julia, about grabbing them from the get-go, especially because we know when it comes to your social media stories and storytelling within the content of your social media, we know how important the visuals are. Like they're key. If you don't have, first of all, if you don't have a visual, nobody's going to see your stuff. Just assume that without a picture or video, nobody's going to see anything.
You should never be posting copy without a visual. Like, you're just wasting your time.
I don't care if you click the little button on Facebook that gives you like the colorful background. Even that is better than just straight up text posts anymore. Facebook changed their algorithm, and they did it for a reason. They did it because people weren't paying attention to that stuff. Nobody was interacting with it. So make sure that you are using visuals. The visuals have this impact that make your readers stop and focus on your story. And really, pro tip here, sometimes your stories in and of your photos in and of themselves can tell the entire story. Basically, when your visuals are using this colorful imagery and they're setting the stage and drawing the reader into the story, everything's going to be that much more compelling. And if you're having trouble with that part, like if you often find yourself like wanting to post things without some sort of video or photo content to go with it, I'll challenge you. Go ahead and try to tell some of these stories with straight up visuals. Because if you can get really good at telling a story with visuals, rather than relying on your content or keeping your copy content to a minimum on your posts, you're going to get really good about making sure that these visuals stay relevant to what your copy is about, and also that they're telling a story in and of themselves, which will make your content and your storytelling on social media that much more impactful. It will be a great use of your resources if you can end up creating this engaging content.
Absolutely. We also, like, human beings read visuals lightning fast, way faster than you look. If you ever seen yourself like scan like a textbook or something like that, you're scanning like visuals. That's why like icons are like really, really helpful when you're writing like pamphlets and flyers like that. Because like people will see your photo or your graphic and it immediately invokes a feeling for them. And it can be the thing that like gets them to read more, or not. And we're like
your website or donate or
Yeah. And think about your visuals too. Like think about your visuals kind of in a different way. So a really attention grabbing visual can be like what might be a simple photo to somebody on the other side of the world, something they would normally see every day, could be really compelling for an American audience who's not used to seeing situations like that. That is not their everyday, view of the world or interaction with the person. So you're grabbing your visuals that really grab people can be a lot more simple than you think. Or it can just be like a really great, like well-designed, like graphic or like video and stuff like that. But Absolutely. Doesn't have to be super complicated. So now we need to nail down and understand what makes up your nonprofit story so you can start to tell it through your social media content. So your story is actually not your mission statement. So if your brain went there, just cross that off, okay? That mission statement is used for other places. It does not have a place in your social media. Your story, your actual story tells about the lives your supporters help you change. I'm going to say that again. Your story tells about the lives your supporters help you change. If you don't really, really understand that and like write from that perspective, you're going to have a lot more powerful stories on your feed. And then we just really want to encourage you to think of your story like you're sharing the journey, as if your supporters are on the same journey with you. Like really have that mindset. They're already here with you. They act as if they're already saying yes. act as if they're already on board and they're part of your team? How would you talk to people a part of your team who already want to see this change happen? You don't have to convince them too much about like wanting to get on board. You just need to tell them how we're going to make this happen and help them feel immersed in it and a part of the team.
Absolutely. Also, the next part in understanding what makes up your nonprofit story is, remembering to put your audience first. I feel like this is the point that we all as marketers know, like we've just heard it so many times, but it's also the thing that's really challenging that we don't always pull off. You need to remember that your story is not about what your supporters, what you want your supporters to know. And it's not about the trials and tribulations of a day in the life of your organization, though that can be a useful part of your story as one of the mini stories under the umbrella of the big story of your organization. Yeah. But the narrative should directly involve your supporters and donors and how their contributions make a difference in your mission.
Yeah. Donors, like, they really care about like the end results. They're not like, stats and figures, that's all great and stuff like that. But like donors really want to see like how their involvement in your organization is actually creating an impact. Are your stories illustrating that? Are your stories sharing that? So you really want to think about how to share stories that illustrate that end result, stories that share how donors get involved directly and like where it actually leads to. So donors aren't feeling like they're just donating to this void of philanthropy, like they're less likely to you think about your organization if it's, it just goes out into this void and they have nothing to contextually connect with. And then like create those stories that really like illustrate the measurable impact that you're making and that your supporters are helping you make, and like goals that are getting achieved because of the people who are getting involved in your organization. So be thinking of those, be keeping an eye out for things like that.
Absolutely. And one more thing that you can do to make sure that you're understanding and effectively communicating your nonprofit stories is take a little bit of time and spend some time on the front lines of your nonprofit gathering stories. So for this, you are going to want to set aside whatever hat it is you normally wear and put on your journalist hat. This is really about being aware of the stories that are happening around you on a normal basis. A lot of times I feel like we're in that mode of trying to craft the narrative. And that is an important place to be as a marketer, as somebody who's trying to spread your nonprofit's message. But take some time to just really understand that the stories that are happening in your organization without you intentionally crafting them. Doing this will give you access to a story library that's full of stories that are ready when you need them. So if you're taking the time to kind of just document these stories that are happening and setting them aside, they'll be there when you're running short on ideas or you're pressed for time. Be sure to include the pieces of those stories that are the most compelling. And what that means is just like the emotional impact of these stories is where that rubber meets the road. That's what causes people to reach for their wallets, that thing that makes you feel something because of the story that you're reading. And once you're able to kind of transition here, you'd be surprised how many fascinating stories are already, surrounding you. So set some time to tune your awareness to those stories.
Yeah. If you, this kind of reminds me of, if you haven't watched our episode about story hacking, you're going to want to check that out. We actually created a 2-week content hacking poster to like make kind of, help you create these stories, help kind of, spark the stories and stuff like that. It's really, really, really helpful.
There's a great free resource with it.
Absolutely. There's so many goodies on there specifically put together for nonprofits. And there's things on there like copy copy suggestions and prompts and the visuals that would go really well with that. And remember, like, how storytelling applies to this is like, not all of your content is going to be able to be done in a storytelling way, but a lot of it can be. And the more that you can implement stories as much as possible, the more you're going to get out of your efforts and the time that you're putting into your social media. So there's 5 content pillars on there, and I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but things like education and all that stuff. Those are all things that you can create stories around, and just be thinking of that. Be at the top of your mind, grabbing the stories in your life.
All right. Our takeaways for today's episode. This is our podcast in a minute for story hacking. This is the part of our podcast where we break down our usual episode into a brisk 1-minute clip for your busy consuming pleasure.
Yes. Storytelling is extremely effective for nonprofit social media because as humans, we enjoy a good story. Stories engage our emotions and our empathy. And most importantly, because it's really important because donors use their emotions to make decisions.
Compelling nonprofit storytelling links the donors directly to the beneficiaries of your mission and grab the attention of the reader from the first sentence. Make your nonprofit story more compelling by telling it like you would tell a fireside chat, using visuals that are relevant to your story, create a highly focused narrative, and make sure that you're ending the story effectively.
Finally, in telling your nonprofit story, do craft a narrative that communicates what you do and why it's important. Do put the audience first and make the story about them. Do include how the audience contributions have made a difference. And don't forget to spend some time gathering stories from people in and around your organization. They'll oftentimes tell the story for you. And that's our podcast in a minute. If you are interested in these topics, please go and watch our full episode or listen to our full episode wherever you love listening to podcasts the most. There's a lot of good things in there that we weren't able to cover in this little podcast in a minute. And that really helps you break down and really understand how to create those stories that are going to help you connect with your donors and get more donations and coming your way.
Here is what we have for this month's do-gooder feature of the month. Yada, 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 insert here, blah, 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 blah. And make sure to nominate a nonprofit to be featured in the comments.
The do-gooder hype up message for this episode is you're never going to kill storytelling because it's built in the human plan. We come with it. That is by Margaret Atwood, author of The Handmaid's Tale. And I think the gal knows a thing or two about storytelling.
Maybe a thing or two. Among Lionhearts is a socially conscious marketing agency where we specialize in social media management and influencer marketing for the unique needs of social enterprises and charities. Let our team of experts manage your social media workload for you so you can get back to doing more good. Remember, every small act of courage, no matter how small, is not actually small at all. You, my dear, are standing among Lionhearts.